from now. So what I'll say at the beginning of this recording is I've just gone over the problem sets, and I've given the strong advice that if you feel behind, to go ahead and create the folder and the files for each one and create a minimally compilable program in that file so that you can get half the points, and that will work for every single problem set. So I just summarized the last 15 minutes of rambling in one sentence. There you go. Now, moving on to this point, points about the project. A lot of you have asked questions about this. I've received quite a few questions about the project. I have been a little surprised, not entirely surprised, because I've seen these kinds of questions before for this and very similar assignments for projects. Is almost all the questions that I've gotten so far have been based on the technical details of how to implement the project. And as a matter of fact, if I were to dig a little deeper and go into a little more detail, most of those technical questions have been about whether I can use something completely different than what we've studied in this module to do my project. And this is surprising to me for one reason, that the design of the feedback in this module for the project in particular is there are two kinds of feedback. This is a bit of a university jargon kind of thing, but it works in schools as well, and school teachers use the same kind of language. Is the two kinds of assessments. One is formative and one is summative. And the simple difference between those is that for summative feedbacks and summative assessments, you get points for them. And, you know, the way that teachers design grading is they're looking for warts to knock points off, and they're looking for things that are absent, you know. The formative kind of feedback doesn't count for any points. This is free feedback that's usually very constructive. At least that's the design, intended to be constructive. It's free for you to make mistakes up to that point. And the whole idea is to build up the points that are possible for you with free feedback. And in general, within the realm of possibility, my ethical stance on teaching and formative feedback is that I am willing to do extraordinary things and commit an extraordinary amount of effort to give formative feedback to any student who is willing to accept it. I go to great lengths to design opportunities and assessments to give formative feedback. The reason I say that, and the reason I say it in that way, is that the thing that surprised me a little bit about the kinds of questions I've gotten so far is that the design of the formative feedback for the project is such that you had an opportunity a few weeks ago to declare what your project title was and who was in your group. And I assumed that that would be the day that you started talking about the idea, looking forward to today, which is your first opportunity to get feedback primarily on pitching the idea. And if you have read the project guidance on the website, and if we want to look at it together, we can, but I assume you guys have all read it already. You will note that there's a very strong emphasis on the vision for the idea. And the wording that I use, I'll just paraphrase the wording that I've put on there. The wording is something like, I want an idea that will change the world. Be ambitious. I want a project idea that will change your community. I want a project idea that's going to do something good, for other people, and be ambitious about it. And so the fact that you hadn't gotten any feedback on the ideas, but I was getting all these technical questions, that's one thing that surprised me. Another one that surprised me a little bit was at least some of the questions had to do with web serving and technical details of compiling things. And I had the realization that it's probably because, it's very possible that some or all of you have not encountered the, we did that little trick last week to do the local web serving in your environment if you got through that material. And what you'll see with the notes for this week is that we moved to a framework of functions called Flask. It's just a Python library. It's pretty popular. There are others. Does anybody know of another Python web serving library? Has anybody heard of any other alternative to Flask? No? I don't assume you had. I'm just asking. One real popular one, probably the most popular one, is Django, DJANGO. And there are many other ones too. The most popular one on the web that does the same thing out of this framework is PHP. Before that was Perl. There are loads of them. Now, the reason that we're using Flask is that it's very, very simple. It's so easy to use. And the fact that I was getting kind of web service kind of questions, I was like, oh, well, we're going to cover that. And it will be better for everybody probably if you just stick with Flask. Plus, you'll reinforce the lesson and learn about Flask because Django is very popular. It's one of those things that web developers would either have as a tool or want to get a certificate so they could get that micro increment in their pay or something. Yeah, Django is very popular for web dev who use Python. Okay, so I have a few points about the project. My first one and the most important one is that the most important thing here is to be ambitious about the idea. If you've got an idea, let me make the distinction in words, and then I'll take some questions at this point, although we'll have some more time for questions later once you think about it, because I want you to discuss this as a group, and then probably more questions will arise. So I don't want to go crazy with questions now. But a thing I want to make a distinction between is if you challenge yourself as a group with your idea and you ask yourself, is my idea something that merely can be done? Or is it something that should be done, that the world needs? That's a distinction between what I mean by ambitious here. If it merely can be done, it's not ambitious. Come on. We don't need another one of them, right, guys? But if it's something the world needs, that's what I mean. You will have to decide this and articulate why the world needs your project. All right. That is a big part of what we're talking about here today. Are there any questions about that? Just briefly, because I want you to discuss this and think about it as a group, and you'll have a little bit of time to do that directly. Any immediate comments or proclamations? Megan, do you have anything to add?
We were thinking really ambitious, and then we thought, there's no way we can possibly make this. So we really cut back on what we were thinking. It was, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree that sometimes you start it, but once you started, you realize there are a few things, might be you don't have prior knowledge, you get some errors, but that's a good thing. I don't think take it as a setback. I take it as an opportunity because we are at least learning something new.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
If you have an ambitious idea, if you had one in the past, when you have the time to confer with your group or just think about it yourself and think through it, don't sell yourself short at this time. Get feedback from us. And if we tell you, oh my God, you're reaching too far, you've hit the sun and your wings are burned off and you're plummeting towards the earth, this is a disaster, that's the time to scale back your ambition. But until then, fly to the sun, boys.
I think it was more like faith in my ability rather than that the idea was actually that cool.
I know some of you are engineers.
I think I can do it,
I know some of you are engineers, and to an extent these days, data scientists also have to be engineers to some extent to be flexible and successful. You have to be. And my philosophy for doing that kind of engineering is this, that the hard part is coming up with a good, worthy idea. The easy part is finding a way to realize that. You just have to find the right tools to put it into place. That's the easy part. Of course, problems arise. That's the fun part as well. So, that's my philosophy on that. Anything else?
No, that's fine. The other thing I was going to say, I've only just seen Ed's email. He replied to me the other day. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Go over that with your group. I probably will recycle some of that verbiage for the frequently asked questions. I wanted to say something about those emails because I noted you sent 2 emails and I wanted to apologize that I couldn't answer. I don't necessarily want to disclose all the details to you, but I'm returning to work after a very long illness and I have some limitations about when I work and to the extent I can work. So you have to bear with me. No need to comment on it. I'm just telling you that that's the way it is. I usually have a bounce back message that's accurate, but I'm slow. I'm slower than usual, and I'm working less hours than my 60 to 80 that I love working when I'm fully fit. So I just wanted to say that. All right. I have here one that's to discuss and go over the project. And I wanted to do this because I thought there were some people that would be here today who haven't declared their project to us, but I believe everybody has declared their project. So I'm going to skip over this one and we can swing back around it when there's more Q&A after you confer with your group. In the chat, there's this television show called Dragon's Den. Can I ask you to put a 1 in the chat if you have a general idea what Dragon's Den is, and a 0 if there's any doubt in your mind what Dragon's Den is about. Yeah, okay, that's good. I just was aware that there may be somebody on this planet somewhere that hasn't heard of Shark Tank or Dragon's Den somewhere. All right, so that's good. We don't have to worry about that. Yeah, I wanted to mention this note as well. Megan pointed out, rightfully, that we look on the schedule here, that I sort of ended the schedule with a wrap-up session next week, but in fact, there are 2 sessions in the first part of the year, and that's week 12 and week 13, and I will update the, Megan has made me a to-do list. I'm a very good boy. I like lists. I like going through lists, so thank you for that, Megan. And I will update this with those dates. What these dates are going to be used for primarily is it's time for you to formally come in person and work as a group on your projects. And there's a good possibility that I'll be able to participate as well, probably like this. So we'll try to keep it going. I won't be here. It's the same thing. I have this limitation every second week because of the scheduling. I can't attend. So with some apologies to everyone, including Megan, I won't be here next week. But in the first of the year, I hope to be able to attend at least one of those sessions. We can talk some technical stuff if you want, but remember the emphasis is on the ambition and what you're going to pitch and demonstrate in the way of your idea and your solution. The technical details will be examined by us. So if you're having some specific problems, want to emphasize that the support that will be easiest for us to give will be if you stay right within the lines of the technology we cover for this module. And I did answer the email that you guys sent, and my philosophy on that is it probably is best, even for very competent engineers, to avoid moving outside what we've covered in the class. I mean, the whole point, like one example, this is just an arbitrary example, but one example was there was a quite legitimate question. It's a great question. I would have asked it myself as a student of we're going to do something with images. Can we use the PIL library, or can we use some other Python library that's got all those functions already written for us? But remember, the point of this module, and every module in university, is just a first-year module. The point of the module is to wrap your head around the algorithms themselves. And so, we've used a few very modest ones. And if you want to do something more ambitious, of course you use the library in the real world. But the point of assessments in university is to kind of show off the tools you've put in your toolbox. So that's my advice. Of course, in the real world, we would be bringing in all sorts of crazy stuff. And you'd be discovering tools on a daily basis like any regular engineer. And you guys at this stage of your education or your careers, wherever you are, you should be trying it on at every possible turn. But for this specific assignment, most people will do best to stay within the confines of the material we've covered. So anyway, you have these 3 sessions to come in and use them formally for your groups. Again, I'm preaching to the choir, as they say where I'm from. You guys have already talked. You guys have some ideas and you have some good questions. You've been thinking about how to do it. So you'll be fine, and I hope to see you in those sessions. I wanted to say something about these problem set timeouts. These are super annoying. And let me tell you my perspective on this is that when I set up the GitHub Classroom, the documentation for GitHub Classroom is, shall we say, what shall we say about the documentation? It's not like other documentation. It's not like good documentation. It's actually hard to figure out exactly how they do certain things. And from my perspective, the guys that are timing out, I have a hypothesis, which I'll present to you in just a moment, about why you're timing out and running out of time. And I also have some suggestions on how to fix it immediately, given that it's early in December. But I'm actually not positive exactly why people are timing out. And when I designed this module in the very beginning, and I decided to use GitHub Classroom, I made a decision that I would not force everybody to declare themselves to GitHub as an official student. And the reason that's an issue is because you instantly get 50% more time if you're an official student registered with GitHub. And we'll talk about that in just a second because it's one of my solutions now. The reason I didn't force that is because per the documentation, it was very explicit that you should have 120 hours as just a normal person on this world to have virtual code space. And I reasoned that it was going to be, I mean, I'm a heavy GitHub user myself, and I do not work in my code space for 120 hours a month usually. I do a lot of things, but I don't constantly. I'm not a programmer. I'm not programming for all day, every day, all month, every month. So I reasoned that it wouldn't be possible for you to do it, especially since there's an automatic timeout on these code spaces. But I was wrong, I think. This is my hypothesis, and I think people are timing out. And here's what I think is happening, is that I think that nobody, because I didn't suggest you to do it, nobody at the beginning had declared themselves as a GitHub student. And a thing that is not documented well in GitHub Classroom is that when you create a code space, and I'm going to indulge myself and draw a picture of this. The way that these GitHub Classroom code spaces work is they sort of work like this. Get this as big as I can. I think that's pretty good. All right, so the way this works is that you accept the assignment, and it creates a repo. Then spin up a code space. Now, I had full control over what resources you get in your code space. And one of the problems was that I was too generous. I gave you guys too much power. You have up to 8 gigs of storage, and I think you have 8 gigs of RAM in there. And the minimum is 2 gigs, 2 gigs. And what I think is happening is that these code spaces, now what would happen is you'd have the repo with the starting stuff. And if this is a model of how GitHub works, is that I'm just going to draw it down here. Let's say that this is your base repo. And let's say that you make a change to it, and this is a change. And then, you make some more changes. Make some more changes. Then you can push your changes, and that updates the repo. So this is version 1, and that's version 2. And of course, this continues as long as you want to do it. Well, what happens with these code spaces is that these changes that you're making are saved in the memory of the code space. And having a code space that's, I just examined some of your repos. For some reason, my pen has stopped working. I'm not sure why. There we go. Some of these code spaces were around 4 gigabytes. And what I believe is that even though you start off with 120 hours each month, that this memory allocation, the code space tracking for changes, builds up. And there are a couple of ways that GitHub have implemented to mitigate your time use. So in other words, if I draw a little graph, kind of like that usage graph that you guys have, this is kind of the amount of dollars or pounds that you're using, and this is the this is time. What I noticed on most of the graphs that I saw is that people are getting up to a certain level, and then it was cutting off. And when I set these up, I estimated, based on the documentation, that 120 hours would cost about $24. And I noticed that people were cutting off around $10 or $12 or $14, way below. And so I've reasoned that counting against this dollar per time graph is carrying the load of storing the memory for your code space. Now I know this is a concept. I hope most of you can follow what I think is happening here. I have 2 suggestions to fix this so you don't experience it in this module, and we'll probably try to do something different next term in the next module that is structured very similar to this next term, so that we don't encounter it ever again. Here's the first solution. First one is I recommend that you find the link to register as a student. Has anyone done that yet? Put a 1 in chat and a 0 if you haven't done that yet on your GitHub. What you'll need to do is you'll need to if you have trouble finding the link, just let us know and I'll provide it for you. But it should be easy for you to.
There's a link to it on the FAQ page.
That's great. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, there's 2 suggestions that I have. So let me say both of them. Maybe people need both of them. Abu. A Harper laptop. Yeah, possibly. People are having trouble doing this. I consider this pretty important, so we can set some time today today and you can show me, share your screen and I can help. But this is one solution that will take your 120 per month up to 180 per month. And it only takes them a couple of days to do this. I know that it's possible to do because I did it on a fake account, declaring myself as a fake student, and they still did it with my staff Harper email address. Even though, well, I use my Gmail address for my regular account. So this is solution one. If people are having trouble, don't put it in the chat now. It's not necessary. When you use your email, I haven't seen the interface. If you've got an account that's on one email account, they will need to confirm you're a real student at a real university with a domain that is a university domain. So they're not going to say, oh yeah, you're telling me you're a real student, Joe Smith at yahoo.com. No thanks. You're not getting the 60 free hours. You will have to find a way to submit your actual Harper email address. And at the worst case scenario, you may need to change your account address to your Harper address. That's not ideal, for all the reasons I mentioned in the beginning of the course, because then when you don't have a Harper address, you lose access to your account in theory, but you could also change it back at a later date, which is probably what I do. This is only the first solution though. There's a second solution, and actually I have three solutions, one of which I may need to implement. Second solution is to manage your code spaces. I'm going to make a new slide and draw a picture of this as well, just to make sure everybody understands. So I've got this little model that's got your repo, and it's got some changes you've made, and then you merge back. So version 1, version 2. Now, if you launch a code space, I'm just going to call this CS for code space. That's a terrible looking C, but trust me, it's one. If you launch a code space here, it starts counting against your time. That's my hypothesis. I actually haven't found any evidence that this actually happens in the documentation, but I'm pretty sure now, based on what I know, that is what's happening. If you make a change that you do not push back to your repo, it is reflected in your code space. Let me take this code space and add to my diagram. And I'm just going to add a little space to my diagram. Every change you make to that repo when you're using the code space keeps a version of the code space. And then when you push back to your repo, it just like when you don't push, it updates your code space. But at this stage, you can just delete this code space because all of your work is saved in this repo. So my second suggestion to manage your time is to, when you're finished in a day with your code space, go to your code spaces and delete the ones that you're not using. Let me just show you how to do that real quick. It's super easy. All you have to do is go to github.com/code spaces. Now you need to be logged in, and if you just scroll down, you can see that I've got 2 code spaces that are up, and both of them say that this code space has uncommitted changes. Now, if I were to delete these, I would lose my work. So what I would need to do before I start messing about with my code spaces is to spin these up in the code space and to to save my changes, to push my changes, commit them and push them. And then I could come back here and delete this without losing any work. Now these last by default at 30 days. And you should be committing and pushing every time you do significant work anyway. I mean, that's what you should comment and commit and push anyway. So this should be just part of your normal workflow anyway, as good practice. What I noticed when I examined some of your accounts is that you were carrying at least 4 code spaces, which makes sense because that's a month. And so you would have done 4 problem sets. This is perfectly logical. And I didn't expect any of you guys to be aware of this. So that's why I'm telling you now that to save time on your accounts, you want to only have a maximum of 1 code space. And actually, it's better to have 0. Just commit and push all the time. And when you're finished in a day, delete that code space. And it only takes a second to spin back up. Are there any questions about that? Because I want to make sure you understand that workflow, because it's kind of an important aspect of using GitHub best practice anyway. And then I think it's a way that will essentially free up a large amount of hours for people. Are there any comments or questions that make sense to everyone? Megan, anything to add?
I got a question. If we delete the code spaces and if we want to go back to work, which we did, just to refresh our memory or something, how are we going to do that if we delete the code spaces?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. The well, the way to go back to the code space is to go back to your repo. Let's just open up one of those repos. I mean, the way to get back to it is just on your account when you're logged in. When you're logged in, is that you can just click the assessment link again, and it'll just spin up a new code space for you using your repo. So you can always get back to it just from the link I provide, or you can go to your repo link if you manage your own GitHub space, and you can choose to open it in a code space. Either way works fine. You'll get back exactly the same environment and lose no work. So
Provided you finished it.
Provided you, well, yeah, you have to commit and push it. That's right. You have to have saved it. So if you make a mistake and don't commit and push, but I mean, it's hard to make that mistake because it does give you the message right here on the code space page for every one that whether or not you do have uncommitted changes. So if you're in doubt, can you see that? I see you squinting.
Oh, it just went a bit blurry.
Okay. So if you're in doubt, just do it from this page and double check from your code spaces page. And you just have to be logged in. I'll just drop that in the chat in case people want. You can't passively use these code spaces. It's another point. I don't know if this is, I'm not sure if this is relevant to your point, RP, but if you passively use the code spaces, they time out by themselves if you take no action in 30 days. And that means that every month you'll have 4 code spaces, each taking up 4 gigs. So eventually you'll carry those 4, as time rolls by. You'll always have 4 and the last one will go extinct if you haven't gone back to it. And you can, if you go to more than 4 per month, if you revisit an earlier one, you can have more than that. Some of you may have more than that if you've revisited them. What I'm saying is that they don't serve you any benefit if you've committed and pushed. So just delete them. The only possible cost, I wanted to say this as well, there is a small cost. The only possible cost is that it takes a few minutes to spin up the code space from new if there isn't an image saved with your changes. But that's a very small cost because the image is not very big that it spins up from. So, you won't be saving much time, just seconds, if you even notice at all, which you probably won't. I mean, it doesn't bother me, and I'm very, very impatient when I'm waiting for cloud stuff. This one you can see as well how much memory it it takes up. It's 4.1 gigs, even though it's, you know, just just a few little C scripts with not much else. And the biggest file, the one with the database, was a bit more than 50 megabytes, so it insignificant compared to 4.1 gigs. So I think that's what's happening. I do have a third recommendation. This one's for people who are adventurous. And I think in the future, I will see if I can manage this on your behalf, but I'm not able to do it right now. The third suggestion I have is that I don't know how much this may contribute, but it could contribute to a small amount. If you're the kind of person that frequently revisits your code space, by default, there's a 30-minute timeout on every code space. And I suspect that that counts against your time also, in addition to storing the memory of the image of the code space. And after 30 minutes, it just times out. This probably, actually what this does is it counts towards your 120 hours directly in time. Now, if you're the kind of person, I have to admit, I do this sometimes myself, although it's terrible practice. If I have a code space up, if you want to irritate me, you'll see me go back to the tab and it'll say your code space is timed out, and I'll say, darn it, and I'll just refresh it. Even if I don't have any coding to do, I just don't want it to time out. I want it to be ready when I'm ready to input on it. But on the other hand, if you're running out of time and you're frequently revisiting it and maybe multiple times a day, and we're only coding in a few minute stretches, and then we might have to think or go read something. As long as you commit and push, you don't even have to commit and push. You just need to save, because it'll save that image to your saved code space. And if you close down the code space, it'll save you all the minutes from the end of the time you finish programming, which maybe it's 3 minutes, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes. It'll save you the remainder of the time to 30 minutes if you go inactive. And what I actually suggest, for most people, this would be fine, is to change this timeout to 5 or 10 minutes. Now, if you have trouble doing that and you want to explore it, I think you'll be able to find the setting for yourself. But if you have trouble, just let me know and we'll work on it together. So I suggest you save.
There's a link on the FAQ.
Great. That's awesome. So those are my 3 suggestions for now. It's a new month. Nobody's timed out now. And I suggest that everybody does these suggestions, possibly all 3. And then what I suspect will happen is that nobody will time out this month. If anybody has trouble, particularly with this one, declaring as a student, I think these first 2, I suspect, will have the biggest impact. So if you have trouble doing one or both of those, let's resolve that today, because you guys, the students that are putting a lot into the course, are the ones that are running out of time. So this is going to benefit you guys, and I want to spend as much time as I can with you to help you do this. I consider it's pretty important. Any comments or questions about this? No? Okay. Now, I've gone over the phases of what we expect for the project. I'm just going to verbally say it quickly again now. A few weeks ago, I believe everybody present here declared their project, told us who was in the group, filled out the questionnaire. Some of you have filled out the questionnaire multiple times. So if you've already filled out that questionnaire, don't fill it out again if we invite people who haven't filled it out yet. I think we only have, how many responses do we have so far, Megan? Unique responses?
I think it was
6.
6.
Yeah. So we are missing quite a few. What that's going to mean is that we're going to invite people to do it again. But if you get invited I'll remind you when we invite you. We don't want people filling it out twice.
I do think everyone here has
I
already
think so
filled it out.
too. Yeah, I think so too. All right, so that was the title and the group proclamation. And then today is the pitch or the Dragon's Den. You know, some of you may have some technical questions today, and I did answer Morgan's email about what I think about that. My answer will not change about that. What I suggest is you think about how you can bring it back in and use some of the existing tools. If you haven't finished the assignment, the problem sets for today that brings in Flask and database and dynamic web pages, you will be able to do very ambitious things with just the simplest tools that are introduced in this module. So there would have to be a really, really good reason to bring in something else. But even then, I would probably discourage it unless a miracle happens in your explanation and justification. And here's why. It's because by doing something that's technically ambitious outside the module, I may not be able to support it. And you may well, I suspect, be biting off more than you can chew, even with the best of intentions. And so, think about that. Now, the final project I've already mentioned. What I expect most groups will do is strongly recommend using the time in class. Come in, just use it as a formal way to make progress on your project. Don't underestimate that README. And on that README, I'm going to expect documentation, just like it outlines on the project guidance page on the website, an account of what each person contributed for multi-person groups. So use this time to, communicate to each other, continually build up to that README. Don't wait till the last day. Of course, you need to make plan for that video that's going to pitch your idea, demonstrate your idea, that is, and so forth. I have this point on here about a roadmap to becoming a data scientist. But it applies to the engineers as well. And for these kinds of tools, it really requires any technical career where you're putting tools in your toolbox as part of a programmed course of instruction. I just want to make a few comments about this. Earlier, I made this comment about data scientists, but it applies to even mechanical and electronic engineers as well as computer engineers. Your whole career, you're learning. You have to. And the reason is that technology changes and the tools change. And a metaphor for it that I've used in my career, I think of it like this, is I like motorcycles. I ride them. I've ridden them my whole life. I own an indecent amount of motorcycles. I love to work on my motorcycles in my garage. And if I'm doing something ambitious to a motorcycle I own, like let's say I'm taking the engine out to rebore the cylinders, I'm going to need some tools. And I'll need different tools than if I'm doing something simple like changing the oil. And I may be real comfortable changing the oil, and I may not be so comfortable reboring my cylinders. And if I want to do something ambitious, I'm going to have to put those tools in my toolbox. It's exactly the same with any engineering career. It's a combination of necessity. It's a combination of opportunity. It's a combination of your own motivation as to what tools you use to populate that garage where you do that good work that you love doing. And one of the reasons I bring this point up and just wanted to make this comment is when we asked what people wanted to improve on a particular module, a couple of the questions suggested things that are really miles outside of what we can accomplish in this module. Ones that I remember were, let's do some stuff on Arduino or Raspberry Pi. Another one I remember was that was a comment that I received was, let's do something on a different kind of database, MongoDB or something. And these are just outside of the scope of this module. I mean, one point I could make is that we have a whole, in data science and in engineering, we have at least one whole module in both courses on using edge boards. So we already have an Arduino Raspberry Pi module here for data science, and I know there's at least one for the engineers as well. And we have a whole databases module here. I think it's next year, maybe the third year, I can't remember. But we'll be using databases in a lot of the modules, but we can't cover all databases all the time. And even if we don't cover a specific database, let's say there's DuckDB, that's my favorite database system. Listen, all database systems are based on SQL. And if I wanted to go out and learn DuckDB, that's a weekend task for me. That's just one weekend. If I already know SQL and I'm competent at using any database, Postgres SQL or SQLite, it just takes me, it will take you just a weekend to add a different system in. So these are two different ways of thinking about the tools you're putting in your toolbox to make your dream garage. One is it takes time to build up a lifetime collection of tools. And let's say I wanted to get a job at Rolls-Royce working on jet engines, and all I can do is change the oil on my motorcycle. It's going to take me a while. I'm going to first have to identify what tools that I need to put in my garage to work on those jet engines. And then I'm going to have to systematically take the time and figure out how much time it's going to take me. I just wanted to make that point. I love talking to you guys. If you want to talk about careers, especially for data science, there's so many paths to do it. Even if you don't consider yourself a data scientist, as an engineer, you will be very powerful if you can handle and do some things with data. So that is reflected by the overlap between the two courses. Now I want to field some questions, if there are any at this stage, about any of the assessments. So you guys can hit me with questions that you just have, if there are any. We've gone over a lot of the answers to questions you might have, I know. Megan, anything to add?
Nope, not for me.
Okay.
Everyone's got a question about any problem sets, project.
I think the only one that I see you take on is number 6. I didn't know that already. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get you to put a 1 in the chat if you have declared your project in your group, and a 0 if you have not? It's waiting on one answer. I think it's Morgan, but I know Morgan's group. Okay, maybe it's RP. No, RP had already answered twice. I think it was Morgan that didn't answer, but we do know you're in a group, so I'll move on. Now, everybody's completed the survey, we think. I want to give people a few minutes now that we've talked about the project and the scope, and I've articulated the emphasis on project ideas that merely can be done versus one that should be done. I believe we agreed to give a minimum of 15 minutes. Do you think that would be enough time to think and talk amongst your group and prepare your project pitch? 15 minutes? Is that okay? Or a little bit more? 15?
Okay.
All right, let's do that. Let's come back at 11:10, and I'll see you then. Should we take maybe should we fold this into a break? Let's have a break. it's time for a break. So why don't we come back at 11:15, and that'll be time for people to get up, stretch their legs, use the bathroom, and do confer. So let's come back at 11:15.
I'm also gonna just try using a different Wi-Fi if you wonder where I go.
Yeah,
Because I'm
okay.
connected to the Harper one, but I only have like one dot. So
No
I'm gonna see if
problem.
I'm connected.
No problem. I'm probably gonna back off of the Teams and I'll come back in myself. I'm probably gonna hang up and I'll come back too. All right, I'll see you guys
Okay.
shortly. I'm gonna end the video here and remind me to restart it if you can.